The sky cracked open without warning. One moment, the twin suns of planet Kellus were shining as always. The next, they disappeared behind massive dark warship ships that did not belong to any known species in the galactic charts. Panic spread. Quickly through the peaceful valley of Zevra, screams echoed across the village. Buildings turned to rubble in seconds. Alexei, a proud alien huntress of the Jezeri people, stood atop the cliff with her bow in hand. Her silver braids whipped in the rising wind. She narrowed her eyes at the ships blotting out the light. There. Not from this system, she muttered. We're under attack. Exactly what I told you. Shouted a voice behind her. It was the human Rhett, a former soldier from Earth, now a wandering engineer, scavenger, and sometimes unwanted guest. Among the Jezeri. He wore patched-up armor and carried a pulse rifle slung across his back. He ran up to her, breathing hard. You said we were safe, she snapped. You said the orbit scan showed nothing. I said we should prepare, Rhett said, pointing to the smoke in the distance. You refused. You laughed when I showed you the old bunker under your town hall. Alexei's pride burned hotter than the fires down below. They come, she said coldly, ignoring his words. I will fight. Like my ancestors. Rhett shook his head. This isn't about honor. This is survival. You have people to protect. Not prove yourself to. But Alexei turned away. She was a warrior, and warriors didn't run down in the valley. Chaos ruled. The invaders, tall, masked creatures with glowing weapons, moved with terrifying speed. The Jezeri guards were brave, but they were not ready. Their bone-crafted spears and energy staves were no match for the invaders' advanced weaponry. Children screamed. Elders were pulled from hiding places. The sky rained red embers from the burning rooftops. Alexei leapt into the fray like a silver storm. She spun, shot, ducked, and stabbed. Her skill was unmatched. For a moment, it seemed she alone could hold them back. But then her bow cracked in half. One of the invaders aimed its weapon at her. She froze. Suddenly, a shot rang out, and the creature dropped, smoking from the chest. Rhett appeared behind her. Still think you don't need my help? She didn't answer. But she didn't stop him either. Together they pushed back inch by inch. Rhett's rifle barked fire, and Alexei's quick reflexes cleared paths through the rubble. But they were only two. The enemy kept coming. They ducked behind a broken wall. Rhett checked his ammo and looked at her. I told you this war wouldn't be like your tribal raids. These things, whoever they are, they don't care about your traditions. They burn everything. We fight, Alexei growled, her lip bloody. That's what matters. No, he said firmly. What matters is knowing when to fight and when to fall back. She glared at him. Fall back? Never. Then you'll lose everything. Before she could reply, an explosion shook the ground. The invaders had brought something worse, a walking tank. A crawler with 6 legs, 2 plasma cannons, and armor thick as Kellus rock. The wall behind them cracked. Rhett grabbed her wrist. We can't win this one, but I know a way out. Alexei pulled her hand back. You can run, I stay. He looked at her with sadness in his eyes. Then you'll die with your pride. Minutes later, the crawler fired. The world turned white. Dust and smoke filled the air. Rhett coughed, pulling himself out of rubble. Alexei! He found her nearby, unconscious, her body bruised, one leg caught under debris. He ran to her and started lifting. Behind him, more invaders closed in. He had warned her. Now she was paying the price. But he wouldn't let her die. Not yet. Alexei opened her eyes slowly. Her body ached. Every breath felt sharp. She blinked against the dust and the pale glow of flickering fires nearby. The air smelled of smoke, blood, and burned stone. Her ears rang. For a moment, she didn't know where she was. Then she heard his voice. You're Awake, Rhett said, crouched beside her. His arm was scratched and his chest plate cracked, but his hands were steady as he cleaned a gash on her shoulder with a cloth. That's good. I wasn't sure if you were coming back. She tried to sit up but winced. Where are we? Outskirts, he said. I dragged you half a mile away from the blast. We're in an old cave shelter. You're lucky your leg isn't broken. Alexei looked down. Her leg was bandaged and splinted. You saved me? She asked, voice low. He gave a tired nod. Yeah. Even after you refused my help, she turned her face away. I didn't ask for rescue. And I didn't ask to be dragged into a war zone, Rhett muttered. But here we are. They sat in silence. Outside, the sounds of destruction were still echoing, distant but constant. Somewhere in the valley, the crawler still walked. The enemy was not finished. Alexei finally spoke. My people, are they alive? Some, he said. I saw groups fleeing into the southern cliffs. Others didn't make it. She closed her eyes. This is my fault. Rhett looked at her. It's not too late to do something smart. She met his eyes, pain and pride still locked in battle. You still think I should run? I think you should listen, Rhett said. I found something. A signal buried beneath the enemy's broadcasts. It's a command code. This attack, it's not just war. It's targeted. Someone told them where to hit. Alexei's eyes widened. You think we were betrayed? I think we're pawns in a much bigger game, he said. And if we don't act fast, your whole world will burn. Despite her pain, Alexei forced herself to stand. Her leg trembled. Rhett moved to help her, but she held up a hand. I can walk. Barely, he said. She grabbed a broken staff to use as a cane. Tell me about this signal. Rhett pulled out a small round device from his armor glowing faintly blue. This isn't just noise. It's a data burst repeating coordinates. I traced the source to an old comms tower near the abandoned mines. Alexei nodded slowly. That tower belonged to the High Council before they fled Kellis, if someone used it. Then they fed your people's location to the enemy. Her fists clenched. Rhett stood up and checked his rifle. If we want answers and maybe a chance to stop another wave, we need to go there. The journey was slow. Alexei limped along with quiet determination, using the staff to support herself. Rhett scouted ahead, keeping his eyes on the sky for enemy drones. The land around them was scorched. Smoke columns rose in the distance. Wrecked skimmers lay in the dirt, twisted like crushed insects. The desert had turned into a graveyard. They didn't speak much, but the silence between them had changed. It wasn't anger anymore. It was focus. By sunset, the tower came into view. Tall, rusted, and covered in vine-like moss, the structure loomed over the canyon below. A soft red light blinked near the top. There, Rhett pointed. The signal's coming from inside. Alexei narrowed her eyes. If someone's there, I want answers. They moved carefully through the rocks. Suddenly, a pulse shot cracked the air, barely missing Alexei's head. Rhett dove behind a rock, pulling her down with him. We're not alone. From the tower's side, figures stepped out, masked, armored, and carrying energy rifles. Not the same species as the invaders. These were smaller. Faster, local, mercenaries, Rhett hissed. They were hired. For what? Alexei whispered. To destroy Kellis, he said. And keep anyone from finding out why. The firefight was fast and brutal. Rhett's rifle barked heat across the canyon. Alexei, ignoring her pain, rolled behind another boulder and tossed a homemade stun spear. It exploded near one mercenary, sending him tumbling. She moved like a ghost, pain forgotten in the rush of battle. The last mercenary tried to run, but Alexei caught him with a swift, brutal strike of her cane across his knees. He fell, groaning. Rhett held the gun to the mercenary's head. Talk. The mercenary spat blood. We were paid ... by someone inside your council. To stir chaos, weaken defenses. Why? Alexei demanded. The mercenary laughed bitterly. So they could invite the enemy in and strike a new deal. Sell you out, new rulers, better weapons. She froze. Her own people betrayed her? Rhett looked at her. We need proof, data, something we can show. Alexei turned toward the tower. Then we get it. And this time she didn't argue. She led the way. Asterisk. The door to the tower creaked open with a low groan. Alexei stepped inside first, her cane tapping against the steel floor. The inside of the structure smelled like rust, burnt wires, and betrayal. Faint lights flickered overhead. Dust floated in the stale air. Broken consoles lined the walls, and one screen still blinked, showing rows of alien code. Rhett followed behind her, scanning the room. Be ready. This place was locked for a reason. Alexei's eyes narrowed. Then let's find out why. At the center of the tower, a large data core hummed quietly. Rhett approached it, pulling out his portable uplink. I can extract the signal's origin and message, but once I start, there's no going back. It might trigger a defense system or alert whoever's still listening. Alexei gripped her cane tighter. Do it. If there are traitors, I want names. He nodded and pressed the device against the core. A soft glow spread through the wires. Lines of alien script scrolled fast across the screen. Alexei couldn't read it, but she saw Rhett's face grow darker with every second. What does it say? She asked. Rhett didn't answer right away. Then he looked at her, his voice low. It's worse than we thought. The file contained logs, private communications between a High Council member named Veldar and someone named Krex, a known arms dealer allied with the invaders. Veldar promised secrets, locations, access codes in exchange for weapons and control. He agreed to allow the invaders to strike certain regions so long as they spared a few rich cities. The rest of the planet was sacrificed. Alexei's blood turned cold. He gave them my people's home. Rhett nodded. He sold you out to gain power after the invasion. She slammed her fist into the console. That coward sits in a floating palace while my village burns. There's more, Rhett said. They're planning a second wave, tomorrow. A clean sweep. Alexei's breath caught. Then we have little time. Suddenly, the tower lights blinked red. A robotic voice echoed through the hall. Unauthorized access. Intruders detected. Doors slammed shut. Rhett cursed. It's a trap. The tower has a self-defense system. Mechanical clanking rose from beneath the floor. Panels opened and small attack drones floated into the room, red eyes glowing. Alexei grabbed her cane and raised a fallen shield from the ground. Rhett drew his rifle. We can't fight them all, he said. But maybe we don't have to. He tossed her his uplink. That device holds the proof. You need to get it back to the resistance. Group in the northern range, Alexei frowned. And you? I'll distract the drones. Lead them out through the east shaft. She stared at him. You're risking your life, he smiled faintly. Welcome to my world. Before she could stop him, Rhett sprinted forward, firing at the drones and shouting, Come get me, you! Flying cans! The drones followed, lasers firing wildly as he vanished into the smoke-filled corridor. Alexei turned and limped toward the emergency hatch. Her leg throbbed. Her body screamed in pain. But she didn't stop. Not this time. The desert night was colder than usual. Alexei pushed through the rocks, clutching the uplink to her chest. She moved like a wounded shadow, every step a struggle. But her mind burned. With purpose. She had doubted Rhett, ignored him, mocked him, Now she carried the truth he had uncovered because of him. As she climbed over the final ridge, she saw fire in the sky. Ships. Too many. The second wave had already begun. At the northern range, hidden among old cliffs, a resistance outpost blinked with faint blue lights. 2 guards stood alert, blasters ready, until they spotted Alexei. "Hold fire, it's her." They ran forward and helped her down. "I need your leader," she gasped. Now, inside the command tent, General Vraxa, thick-scaled alien veteran, with sharp eyes, turned to her. "You look like you've been through the Underlands." "I have," she said. "And I bring proof of betrayal." She handed him the uplink. As he read the files, his face changed. This changes everything," Vrax said. "With this, we can expose the Council and rally the other sectors." "But we have little time," Alexei added. "The second wave is here." Vrax slammed his fist on the table. "Then we strike first." Far in the distance, unknown to Alexei, Rhett was still alive, bruised and burned. He hid beneath a collapsed tunnel, breathing heavily as the tower burned above. He smiled weakly, whispering to himself. She finally listened. The resistance. Base was alive with movement. Alexei stood in the center of the command tent, her body sore but her mind clear. Around her, officers shouted commands, drones lifted into the air, and maps lit up with glowing red markers. General Vrax stared at the screen. "They're moving faster than we thought. If we don't strike now, they'll wipe out the northern cities." Alexei stepped forward. "Then let me lead the assault." Vrax turned to her, raising a brow. "You were just dragged in half dead. And yet I survived," she said firmly. "I've faced them. I've seen how they move, how they fight. You need someone who understands them and who has something to prove." Vrax nodded slowly. "You'll get a squad. Small. Fast. We hit their fuel supply depot near the ridge. Blow it and their fleet stalls in the sky." Alexei grinned for the first time in days. "Finally, a fight I choose." Meanwhile, miles away, under the ruins of the tower, Rhett struggled to breathe. His armor was cracked. His arm was badly bruised. But his spirit hadn't broken. He dragged himself through a collapsed tunnel, following a weak signal on his tracker. It led to an old emergency exit system from the tower days, something not many knew existed. He reached the door and pounded the release. It opened with a hiss, letting in fresh desert air. Rhett stumbled out, blinking in the moonlight. He looked toward the northern range and muttered, "Hope she made it." He started walking slow, painful steps toward the only home left. Back at the resistance base, Alexei suited up. Her armor was older than Rhett's, scratched and dull, but she wore it like a second skin. She tied her silver braids tight, grabbed a shock blade and a stinger pistol, and turned to her team. 6 fighters stood behind her, 3 Jazeri warriors, 2 humans, and 1 insectoid sharpshooter with glowing green eyes. She raised her voice. "This isn't just a mission. This is for the ones we lost. For the children who ran. For the elders who burned. We stopped their fuel. We stopped their war." Her team roared back in unity. They moved out. The ridge was heavily guarded. Enemy drones floated in the sky. Towers scanned the ground. Strange beasts, half machine, half reptile, patrolled the rocks around the depot. It was a metal fortress in the middle of the sands. Alexei crouched behind a dune, raising her hand to signal halt. "We go silent," she whispered to her team. "No shooting unless I say." They moved like shadows, using the night and the rocks. They climbed down the ridge slowly. Every breath felt like thunder. Every step had to be perfect. Then they reached the walls. Alexei placed a pulse charge on the gate's lock. Click, buzz, snap. The door opened and they slipped in. Inside the depot, fuel cells lined the walls, glowing blue. Large tanks hissed with pressure. Guards patrolled the walkways, unaware that death had come to visit. Alexei led the way, planting explosives on key spots. Her team covered her, moving swiftly. They were halfway through when a sudden voice shouted, "Intruders!" Lasers fired. Chaos erupted. Alexei dived behind a crate, shooting back with her Stinger pistol. Her team split up, returning fire from different angles. The insectoid sniper dropped 2 guards from above. A human soldier in her team was hit in the leg and cried out. Alexei dragged him to cover, throwing a smoke charge as she moved. Through the smoke, she saw the main fuel core. "Cover me!" She shouted. She ran limping slightly toward the core. Bullets whizzed past her. A guard lunged with a blade, but she ducked, slammed her elbow into his stomach, and drove her blade into his chest. She reached the core and slapped the final explosive on it. Then, "Overcomes," she said calmly. "All charges set. Fall back." Her team ran through the depot, dodging fire, leaping over burning crates. They made it outside just as the first explosion lit up the night like a second sun. The fuel core went up in flames. The entire ridge shook. Enemy ships above them stuttered in mid-air, engines failing. Alexei stood on the hill, watching the sky. "Burn. They'll feel that," one of her fighters said. She nodded, eyes fierce. "They should." Hours later, the resistance celebrated. The depot was gone. Half the enemy ships had crashed. Others had pulled back. The second wave had failed. But Alexei didn't smile. She stood alone at the edge of the camp, watching the horizon, and that's when she heard a familiar voice behind her. "Didn't think you'd blow up half the mountain without me." She turned. Quickly. It was Rhett, dusty, tired, and leaning on a makeshift crutch. Alexei stared at him, then slowly walked over. "You survived." "Barely," he said. "You didn't listen and still lived." "I'm starting to think you're just lucky." She laughed softly. "Maybe. Or maybe I finally learned something." They stood side by side in the cool night. No more arguing, just respect. But the war wasn't over yet, and the real traitors still sat in power. The war camp was still buzzing with victory. But Alexei stood silently near the northern cliff's edge, watching the smoke rise in the distance where enemy ships had fallen. Her wounds throbbed under her armor, but she didn't flinch. She couldn't, not now. Rhett sat beside a small fire, wrapping a bandage around his arm. He looked older now, tired, dirt covering his face, his armor held together with patches. But his eyes were alert. He looked up as she walked over. "You're quiet for someone who just saved half a continent." Alexei sat beside him. "We stopped one wave. The true war is still ahead." Rhett nodded. "You saw the files. Veldar betrayed you. He sold out your people, and he's still sitting safe in the sky." "He was a leader once," she said. "My clan trusted him. My mother called him a brother. And now he's a traitor," Rhett said. "You've got the proof. The resistance believes you. What comes next?" Alexei met his eyes. "We bring him down." Inside the command tent, General Vrax leaned over a holographic map. Alexei and Rhett entered together. "Enemy fleet has stopped moving," Vrax said. "They're confused. Your raid damaged their supply network. But they'll recover soon." "We need to strike before that," Alexei said. "Strike where?" Vrax asked. "They still control the skies." Rhett stepped forward. "Veldar is aboard the Solari Citadel, a floating capital ship above the clouds. Untouchable, unless you're crazy." "I'm listening," Vrax said. Rhett pulled out a worn data pad. "There's a docking path used by supply freighters, no weapons. Just crates. If we sneak aboard one of them, we can get inside." Vrax frowned. "That's a suicide mission." "Maybe," Alexei said, voice sharp. "But it's the only way to reach the head of the snake." The next night, Rhett and Alexei prepared. Rhett adjusted the stolen freighter uniform. Try not to look like you're planning to stab someone. Alexei raised an eyebrow. I always look like that. They both shared a small laugh for once. It didn't feel forced. Their ship, a small cargo vessel, rose quietly into the night sky, joining a line of other transports heading toward the Solari Citadel. Alexei looked out the window as the stars moved past. What if we fail? Rhett shrugged. Then we die trying to do the right thing. She stared at him. You never gave up on me. No, he said simply. Even when you were wrong, I still saw who you could be. She didn't answer, but her hand rested near his for a long moment. The Solari Citadel was massive like a floating mountain, made of black metal and light. It hovered high above the clouds, invisible from the ground. Their ship docked with a hiss. Guards checked the manifest and waved them through. Inside, everything was polished and cold. Tall ceilings, golden banners, glowing control panels. It looked more like a palace than a warship. Rhett whispered, "Stick to the plan. No fighting unless we're caught." They moved through the halls quietly, blending in with other workers. Cameras watched them from above, but they kept their faces down. Finally, they reached the elevator to the council chamber. It was locked by DNA access. Alexei reached into her belt and pulled out a small vial, stolen from one of Valdar's captured aides. She injected it into the scanner. Green light. Access granted. The doors opened to reveal a grand chamber, gold chairs, floating screens, and a single man standing near the window. VEL single quotes . He turned slowly as they stepped inside. Well, he said calmly, I wondered when you'd come. Alexei's eyes narrowed. You know what you did. I did what was necessary, he said, to save our people. You fed them to monsters. She shouted. I made deals with power, Valdar said. The galaxy doesn't care about honor. It respects strength. You should thank me. I saw your deals, Rhett said, stepping forward. I saw the numbers, the names. You didn't save your people. You saved yourself, Valdar smirked. Then kill me. Go on. Prove you're better. Alexei's hand hovered over her blade. Her breathing slowed, but then she stepped back. No, she said. The people will see what you've done. I want them to know the truth before they bury you. She pressed a button on her wrist. Communicator. Live. Broadcast activated. Across the planet. Screens flickered to life. Valdar's secrets were no longer secret. Suddenly, alarms blared. Security stormed in. Rhett shouted, We're surrounded. Valdar laughed. You think I didn't plan for this? But Alexei only smiled. No, you didn't. Outside, resistance ships guided by Vrex broke through the clouds. The battle had already begun. And this time, it was on her terms. Asterisk. Sound of alarms filled the massive chamber. Red lights flashed on the walls. Outside the wide windows, the sky lit up with laser fire as resistance ships broke through the clouds, diving straight toward the floating city ship, the Solari Citadel. Valdar's confident smirk cracked. Alexei pointed to the screens. Your time is over. He laughed bitterly. You brought war to my doorstep. No, Rhett said, aiming his pulse rifle. You started this war the day you betrayed your own people. Valdar's guards rushed in. At least a dozen fully armored, weapons ready. Rhett grabbed Alexei's hand and dove behind the golden chairs as bullets tore through the air. They're not here to talk. I noticed. She shouted, drawing her blade. They were trapped in the council chamber. The only exit was swarming with soldiers. The walls were thick, the windows unbreakable. No easy way out, but Alexei wasn't giving up now. On the ground, the people of Kalis were watching. The live broadcast from Alexei's communicator streamed across screens, every market, every hideout, every battlefield. Veldar's voice was replayed. His deals, his betrayal. His words, "The galaxy respects strength," were now being used to turn the people against him. "General?" Vrax stood in the lead gunship. "Everyone knows now. Time to finish this." He gave the order. The resistance fleet rose. Back inside the Citadel, the chamber trembled as explosions rocked the outer hull. Sparks flew from ceiling lights. Rhett peeked out, shot one guard in the chest, then ducked again. "They're moving in from both sides. We need to move now," Alexei said. "There's a service tunnel behind the council wall. I saw it. On the map." She ran, sliding across the floor, slamming her cane into a hidden panel. It clicked open, a narrow maintenance shaft. "Go!" she shouted. Rhett fired 2 more shots and followed her through. They crawled through the metal duct, smoke rising behind them. "They'll follow," Rhett said. "I'm counting on it," she replied. She dropped a small explosive behind her. Boomed out the tunnel behind them. Collapsed. They emerged in the Citadel's engine sector. Huge turbines spun. Energy crackled along power lines. The entire ship's life systems were controlled from this place. Rhett looked around. "We blow this up and the Citadel crashes," Alexei nodded. "With Veldar still inside." "But we're still inside too," Rhett said carefully. She looked at him. "We came to end this, not to escape." For a moment, Rhett said nothing. Then, he smiled slightly. "You've changed." She looked down at her hands. "No, I just finally listened." They planted charges around the core. Each one beeped softly. The timer was set 5 minutes. Suddenly, Rhett froze. "Wait!" From behind the turbines, a figure limped forward. Veldar. He had escaped the chamber and followed them. Blood on his face, one hand holding a plasma pistol. "I built this world," he growled. "You think you can tear it down with a few explosions?" "You already tore it down," Alexei said. "We're just lighting the funeral fire." He aimed his pistol at her, but Rhett stepped in the way. "Move," Veldar hissed. Rhett didn't. The shot fired. Crack. It hit Rhett in the shoulder. He collapsed to the floor. Alexei screamed, charging forward. Her blade flashed. In one strike, she knocked Veldar's weapon aside. Her second strike knocked him to the floor. She stood over him, breath heavy. "You're not worth a third," she whispered. She left him unconscious, then turned to Rhett. He groaned. "Still standing, kind of." Alexei knelt beside him, helping him up. "We have to go." The timer showed only 1 minute left. Rhett pointed to the emergency escape hatch above them. "Through there." She helped him climb the ladder as the floor shook below them. At the last second, they jumped into a small escape pod and slammed the door shut. The Solari Citadel exploded behind them. The sky lit up like fire. The massive floating ship fell from the clouds, breaking apart piece by piece, burning as it crashed into the empty mountains far outside the cities. The resistance fleet cheered. On the ground, the people shouted her name. Alexei had returned not just as a warrior, but as a hero. The pod landed in the sand. Alexei stepped out, helping Rhett onto the ground. His arm was bleeding, but he was alive. They sat in silence, watching the Citadel burn in the distance. Alexei turned to him. "You saved me again," he smiled. "Maybe now you'll finally believe me when I give advice." She smirked. "Maybe." Then her face softened. "I was wrong before," she said. "I thought strength meant standing alone. But you showed me it means knowing when to trust someone." Rhett leaned back against the pod. "We're alive. The enemy's gone, and the truth is out." She looked to the sky. "Almost over," she said. He nodded. "Almost." 3 suns rose over Callus. The smoke from the crashed Solari Citadel still curled upward in the distance, but the air was calm. For the first time in weeks, no explosions, no gunfire, No screams, just wind through the ruins and the slow return of peace. Alexei walked through the center of what was once her village. Buildings were shattered. Statues of old heroes lay in pieces. But life was returning. Children gathered broken toys. Elders whispered prayers. Fighters helped rebuild with shaking hands. She paused near the stone where her family home once stood. It was gone now, only ash and memories. But she stood tall. Behind her, Rhett limped into view, his arm in a sling and his uniform torn. He smiled. "You came back." "I had to," she said. "This is where it all began." He looked around. "The people. They're following your lead now," she nodded. "Not because I fought, but because I listened, finally." Later that day, in the resistance camp, leaders from across the planet gathered. The room was crowded: Gizeri, humans, insectoids, and more. Everyone watched as Alexei stepped to the center. Vrax raised his voice. "Our world nearly fell. Our leaders betrayed us. But we are still standing because of one warrior." He motioned to her. Alexei looked around. "I am no savior. I made mistakes. I was proud. I refused advice that could have saved lives." She looked at Rhett. "But I learned. I changed. And now, we must rebuild not just with weapons, but with unity." There was silence. Then applause louder and louder until the tent echoed with cheers. Vrax stepped forward. "The council is gone. We need new voices. Will you lead, Alexei?" She paused, then said, "Only if I don't lead alone." She turned to Rhett. "He warned me when I wouldn't listen. He stood by me when I failed. Kellis needs humans too. We share this world now." Vrax looked at Rhett. "Will you accept?" Rhett shrugged. "I'm not a leader. I'm just the guy who says, this is a bad idea, and hopes someone listens." Everyone laughed, but then Rhett nodded. "I'll help. As long as we do it together." That evening, the people lit fires around the ruins of the village. Not to mourn, but to celebrate. Dancers moved between flames. Musicians played old songs mixed with new rhythms. Children ran with glowing streamers. For the first time, hope had returned. Alexei stood beside Rhett, both watching the firelight. She looked up at him. "So, what now?" Rhett leaned on his crutch. "Now? We rebuild homes. Train better fighters. Build real defenses, and maybe teach kids not to punch first." She smirked. "Sounds boring." He raised an eyebrow. "After all that, you want more chaos?" "No," she said quietly. "But I never want to be unprepared again." He smiled. "Then we make sure no one ever is." Days passed. The broken cities were cleaned. The traitors still hiding were hunted down. Veldar was confirmed dead in the wreckage, though some whispered he escaped. No one truly knew, but no one feared him anymore. Because the people had leaders now. Real ones. Alexei trained a new Garda mixed force of Gizeri and human volunteers. She no longer fought to prove herself. She fought to protect. Red helped design new warning systems, satellite shields, energy bunkers, code encryption. He was no longer just a visitor. He was a builder. A trusted friend. Together they created something stronger than walls. They built trust. One morning, as the suns rose higher, Rhett found Alexei in the field near her village ruins. She stood alone, eyes closed, arms open, feeling the wind. "You all right?" he asked. She opened her eyes. "I'm ready now." "For what?" "For peace," she said. He smiled. "That's rare in our line of work." She turned to him. "You were right. From the beginning. I paid the price for ignoring wisdom. But because of you, I survived. I learned." "And now?" he asked. "Now," she said softly, "I give others what you gave me, second chances." Rhett nodded. Then, without another word, they walked back toward the village side by side. The war was over. The world had changed, and so had they.